All right, I'm gonna try to one take this thing. No promises, but we're here today. It is Sunday. It is Super Bowl Sunday. And we're here to recap the trade deadline. I know it's a little late and it's not as timely as I would like it to be, but we're here, where I'm here. At least, Jacob is still absent, unfortunately. But I'm here, and I have a lot of thoughts about the trade deadline and about kind of where the NBA stands right now going into the All-Star break. And man, what a week it has been. Probably not to be hyperbolic one bit, this was the biggest trade deadline of all time. This was the most unexpected trade deadline of all time. And while one move in particular, of course, kind of carried a lot of the weight of that, we still had a lot of other moves happen that not necessarily flew under the radar, but kind of failed in comparison to what the big trade, brought us. And so let's hop right into it. A little over a week ago, it's Saturday night. I'm gonna set the stage for you. It's Saturday night. I'm sitting here and I'm watching the end of the Blazers game. Blazers play a late game on Saturday night. Blazers my favorite team, of course, as you know. Super hot, by the way, right now. 110 of their last 12. Having a lot of fun watching the Blazers, but we'll touch more on that later. I get a notification. And right now, the way I have my phone set up, since it's so close to the trade deadline, the only notifications that I have on my phone besides texts are from Shams. Those are the only notifications that I have on right now. So I see the little X, logo show up beside a Shams notification, and I just see the headline. And it says, Luka Doncic has been traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. And now I do what I think a lot of us did, whenever this trade broke, and I was like, no, that's somebody hacked Shams. This wasn't real. This can't be real. There's no way in a million years that would happen. And so, I go to X and I go and look, and sure enough, it's what it says. And everyone, in the comments is like saying the same thing, like, no, this can't be real. This can't be true. So I'm like, I'm gonna give it a few minutes. And there's the initial shock factor, because I want to be able to like break it to everybody who's in my house. So anyways, we get another tweet a couple minutes later, Shams saying, yes, this is real. Luka Doncic is being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis. And so I run down the stairs. I'm telling my dad and my brother, I'm like, check X right now. Check Twitter right now. And it's so insane. It's so insane that in 2025, something like this can happen, where we have no idea of rumblings of a trade from Luka from the Mavericks. There's been no prior basis for this, other than kind of reading in between the lines with some of the things with Luka and the Mavs front office. Going back and looking at it now, some of the things make a little more sense to why they ended up doing what they did. For their motivations, at least. Obviously, for most of us, we still are like, this can't constitute a move of this magnitude. It just can't. But anyway, man. And then all of the, other NBA reporters come in and, back up Shams' tweets. And yeah, Luka Doncic gets traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. Not just Luka, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris traded to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and the Lakers' 2029 unprotected first-round pick. Man, I didn't think in a million years something like this was possible. We draw up mock trades all the time, and even on this channel, and me and Jacob have done it before, we have been like semi-realistic to what these trades can look like. So we say like, what if we tried to do like a Jokic trade, or we tried to do like a Jason Tatum trade or a Wemby trade? Like, no, it's not even like something that can happen. After seeing this, after seeing this, who knows what can happen, man? Who knows what is possible anymore? Like the reality that we live in was shattered for like at least a couple of hours, and now going forward to see that it's still a real thing a week later is like, man, it still doesn't feel real. It still doesn't feel real, and I don't think it will until we see Luke on the floor, where he is supposed to be on the floor tomorrow against the Utah Jazz, which is a nationally televised game now. So I'm sure many people will tune into that. But Anthony Davis on the other side played his first game for Dallas yesterday, played a really good game until he ended up exiting with an injury, unfortunately, which they say is not too serious, thankfully, but he played really well. And Max Christie has played really well in the start for the Mavericks. Over these first couple games, they got a big win in Boston, played a national TV game against the Sixers where he looked really good. But man, and I know Nico Harrison has been getting it from all parties over the past week. But I've been very careful to reserve my thoughts until I've been able to get a full scope of everything, all the fallout, all of the, all the information that comes out post trade release. So here's what I'll say. I still can't defend the move. I can't defend it from, the fact that Luka Doncic was the franchise. He was the Dallas Mavericks franchise. He brought in so many fans, so many international fans. And in today's NBA state, where a lot of fans are more fans of players than teams, the Dallas Mavericks have lost like a big chunk of their fan base. And I know there's, rumors out about Dallas potentially moving and, it all being like a hoax to send the team to Vegas and whatnot. I don't know how much I read into that, but for the time being, at least, man, like, you have broken these fans in half because you just went to the finals with him being your guy, your heliocentric guy. It still doesn't make much sense to me how you can do something like that with the basis of, oh, he isn't conditioned, or, oh, we gave him this time to, cut weight, and he just didn't do it. For that to be the basis of a move this extreme, I can't rationalize that. I just can't rationalize it. So from that perspective, I'm still flustered. I'm still in a state of shock. I'm still shocked that a move like that could be made. From a strictly talent for talent perspective, it's not like the Mavericks are getting cookie crumbs back. And I know a lot of people frame the trade up to, be that way. But Anthony Davis is not cookie crumbs. And if they are really, set on them being a defensive juggernaut as their vision, as long as Anthony Davis is on the floor, he's going to help that cause. But my thing with that is, it's not like the Mavericks were a bad defensive team anyway. They were the 12th ranked defense before that trade got finalized. They were a solid defense. They have two bigs that can hold it down as defensive anchors with Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. And that was another thing, too, about Nico Harrison's comments talking about, Anthony Davis, we want to have this center who is, defensive minded and really reflects the vision of the team. You have two centers already. One of them is 20 years old and is on a trajectory to be an all-defensive caliber player potentially. Like, that's what baffles me, man. And we've seen them run lineups where AD is out there with Gaff. Lively hasn't been playing. He's been out with an injury. But, I mean, if you're going to call him a center, I don't get that part of it. But he's been playing four, so I guess he's not playing center. I don't know, man. But talent for talent-wise, it's not like the Mavs got cookie crumbs. Like, they will be a playoff team this year. They will be a good team still going forward. It's just, are we rooting for 33-year-old Kyrie Irving? Are we rooting for 32-year-old Anthony Davis to be, like, the hope for the future? Is that what you're trying to sell us? And that's where, I think a lot of fans, not even just Mavs fans, NBA fans are like, this isn't right. Like, we can't buy what you're trying to sell us here. And I have so many, I feel so bad for the Mavs fans who poured into this team with Luka being the heliocentric guy. Because I've been on record saying that I don't know if a heliocentric offense can, be a championship formula. It almost was with Luka Doncic. That's how great he is. And I know that people have qualms with his defense, but he was an improved defender this year. When he was on the floor, he was an improved defender for the Dallas Mavericks. And he has shown over the past, especially year and a half, the ability to lock in on the defensive end ever since that series against Golden State where they lost in the Western Conference Finals in 2022. He has made a concerted effort to be a better defender, and it has shown. He'll never be a great defender because he's an all-world offensive player. I don't get it, man. I just don't get it. The Mavs will be fine, like standings-wise. They'll still be a playoff team. But I think you may have hurt your ceiling. You may have hurt your ceiling. And even if you do reach these great heights, even if your vision comes into fruition, this is the crazy part. If your vision comes into fruition, but Luka isn't there, how many of those fans are you realistically, going to earn back? Even with, conquering the greatest heights. I just don't know, man. But from the Lakers' perspective, this is a move that sets them up for the future. Lakers fans are the most spoiled fans in the NBA, where you can go from the Lakers of the 80s with Magic and James Worthy, and you have Kareem, and then you go to Kobe and Shaq, and then you go to LeBron, and now you have Luka for the future. There's been very little time in between for the Lakers to be genuinely bad. And being a fan of a small market team, and I know a lot of my friends are fans of small market teams as well, it's man, the rich really do get richer. And I know it's a cliche thing to say, but this is really the pecking order of things, and it's a harsh reality for some of us out here. With that being said, though, as time has gone on, obviously I've been more and more a fan of the sport than just my own team. So I am going to enjoy watching Luka on the Lakers, and especially in the time that he has with LeBron. I think it's going to be some great hoops. I think it's going to be some really, really fun hoops to watch. I don't know what the ceiling of this current team can be, and especially since the Mark Williams trade got rescinded yesterday, which I'll touch on a little more in a second. With the Lakers lacking a real competent, consistent big, I don't know, how much they can really accomplish against the West, against teams like the Nuggets with Jokic, and then, you've got all the other teams at the top. They really needed a Mark Williams if they're really going to try to contend this year. But with that said, I think the Lakers win this trade. I think they do. And I'm not one to give winners or losers on most trades, especially this early on in the process. We still have so much ball to see. But from the fact alone that the Mavericks are losing their franchise player, a big chunk of their fan base, and a lot of the hope that was within that fan base, that alone leaves them demoralized in a lot of ways. It leaves them, it just leaves them a little lost. And I know that may be a little dramatic. That may sound kind of dramatic, but that's the feeling in Dallas right now. That's the feeling in Dallas for a lot of the fans. And I think for the more team oriented and more really bought in fans, they'll be able to rally around this team with Anthony Davis and Kyrie is the thing. But I'm thinking about the mass majority of casual Dallas Mavericks fans who may not be NBA fans or really even basketball fans on a deeper level. Talking about just Mavericks fans, all they knew was Luka Doncic. That's all they knew. So for that to be taken away from them, I think that's really tough. I think that's a really tough thing. But so yeah, that kind of kicked us off on Saturday out of nowhere, super unexpectedly. And then the next day, we see a move that I kind of talked about last time I was on here, with De'Aaron Fox being moved to the San Antonio Spurs. And this was a move that I didn't know would happen before the trade deadline. I thought it, might be something that came in the off season. But De'Aaron Fox is traded to the Spurs in a 3-team deal that sent De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin to the Spurs. The Sacramento Kings received Zach LaVine from the Chicago Bulls, CD Sissoko, who was waived. 3 first-round picks. Only one of those is like a legit first-round pick. 2031 from the Timberwolves. In a couple of seconds, the Bulls get Zach Collins, Kevin Huerter, Trey Jones, and basically their own first-round pick back from the Spurs. This was a trade that, and I know I've been on here, and I know people have been on here on the internet talking about, the Spurs, they've got this good thing going, they're in no rush to, make a move. But when a player the caliber of De'Aaron Fox is on the market, I think you have to strike on the iron's hot, and the Spurs did that. The Spurs did that. They knew this was an opportunity they couldn't pass up. And we knew that De'Aaron Fox, after hearing the news that if he became a free agent, he would prefer to go to the Spurs. We knew that this was going to happen one way or another. So for the Kings to get anything out of it is good for them, and they get a great player in Zach LaVine, who's been having a really underrated season this year. Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan back teammates again. The Chicago Bulls of the West, just replacing Vucevic with a slightly better Domantas Sabonis. But I do really like this trade for the Spurs. I think pairing Victor Wembanyama with someone like De'Aaron Fox is really going to pay dividends. Maybe not this year, because they're out of the play-in right now, and I don't know if I see them climbing their way back up to the 10 seed this season. But for next season, it sets them up to be really nice. They'll have some moves that they can make in the off season. I really like it for the Spurs. They didn't have to give up any of the Atlanta picks, which are pretty highly valued now, especially with the Hawks kind of being sellers at the deadline. So it'll be interesting to see the Hawks' future over the next couple of years and the future of those picks, which could end up being very nice for San Antonio. But I like this trade. The Bulls didn't really get anything out of it. I know if you watch Kenny Beachum, Kenny for real, King of the Fourth Quarter, he was very irate about the Bulls front office and the way that they went about this, not getting any first-round picks for DeMar DeRozan or Zach LaVine in the trades that they made. So that's pretty rough. But interesting move. Fox going to from the Kings to the Spurs. I like that one a lot. The other deal that we kind of foreshadowed on the channel last time we were on here was the Jimmy Butler move, which was the one that was, it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when before the deadline it would happen and to where. And we saw for the longest time, he wanted to be a Phoenix Sun. He wanted to end up in Phoenix. You had the kind of subliminals that he would throw in the games with the Phoenix Suns colored shoes and his hair, maybe even. And maybe that's looking a little too deep into it, but Jimmy Butler's like that. Jimmy Butler's petty. Jimmy Butler's a petty guy. So every single sign that you can kind of get from him is, rationalized in some way. But he does not end up going to the Phoenix Suns. He ends up being traded to the Golden State Warriors, who were kind of desperate to make a move of their own, as they are around the 10 seed, 9 seed right now. A team that's floated around 500 basically all year since their pretty good start. The full package includes Jimmy Butler being traded to the Warriors with 2 second-round picks. The Miami Heat get back Andrew Wiggins, Kyle Anderson, who I'm not even sure is still on the team or not. They get Davion Mitchell from the Raptors, who I actually really like in their system. I don't know how much playing time he'll get, but he's a guy that fits kind of the Heat culture gimmick. And they get the Warriors a protected first-round pick from this year, which will probably convey. This ended up being a 5-team trade, so I'll just leave it at that. Those are really the only big pieces in the trade. Dennis Schroeder ended up in Detroit, which was like his 4th different destination from this trade deadline. Dennis Schroeder and PJ Tucker, who got traded like 4 times at the trade deadline, are going on a world tour right now. So yeah, that's interesting. But a couple of months ago, when the Jimmy Butler rumblings first started happening, I said that I liked him out of all the teams to end up in Golden State. I liked that fit the best. And I stand by that. I think that this doesn't necessarily push them into contention or anything, but I like this being a place where he can play spirited basketball and at least make a push. And I think that him playing with guys like Steph Curry and Draymond Green, who are along the same timeline and are looking to do the same thing, I think that really is going to kind of inspire them to play really spirited basketball. And we know when Jimmy Butler is playing spirited basketball, he can be a absolute menace on the floor, even at his older age. And last night they played a game where they got down by 24 against the Chicago Bulls, came back and won by 20. Jimmy and Steph both played really well, so I'm excited to watch it. If there's anything about all of these trades, I'm just excited to watch. You know, as a neutral fan for a lot of these trades, my team didn't end up making any trades, so I'm able to kind of just sit back with my popcorn and watch all these new players on these new teams and enjoy the basketball and And even if my team did make trades, I'd be able to do the same. But I think that's a good way to be about it. But I do like in this trade that the Heat were able to get back Andrew Wiggins. I don't think that he is that much of a downgrade from a player like Jimmy Butler, especially what Jimmy Butler was giving you this year. And, you know, going forward, I don't know necessarily. The Heat are going to have some more decisions to make with Bam Adebayo in the future. Tyler Hero's been playing really well. But the ceiling of this team looks like it's kind of capped as a team that can maybe make the second round at the most. They're going to be in between the 5 and the 8 seed in the Eastern Conference, most likely. And they just got a lot of good players. They've got a lot of good players right now, but they don't really have that guy that really takes them over the top, like Jimmy Butler has in the playoffs in years past. So I think the Heat are going to have more decisions to make. But I like this trade for them to get the value back that they did and trade Jimmy Butler, who was just causing havoc there. I think it was a good return for the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler, after the trade, goes on to sign a 2-year, $121 million extension. To be 35 years old and to be able to do that, hey, props to you, man. Props to you and your agent. But that's a lot of money for a 35-year-old Jimmy Butler. So we'll see how that kind of plays out for the Warriors over the next few years. That puts him on the exact same timeline with Steph Curry and Draymond Green. Their contracts will all end at the exact same time. So that's pretty convenient for the Warriors. And the Warriors didn't have to trade Jonathan Kuminga or Moses Moody or Brandon Podziemski, guys who they really still value. So I think it was a win-win for both the Warriors and the Heat. What it does for their contention hopes, I don't think it does a whole lot, but I think both teams can walk away from this trade and feel good about it. Another trade that was very interesting happening right after this trade, didn't really have a whole lot of a basis on this trade. We knew that this guy might get moved, but Brandon Ingram being traded to the Toronto Raptors. And it's interesting, right? Because the Raptors are this seemingly tanking team, and they don't really have, you know, plans of being contenders in the next year or two. But their rebuild has been very interesting because they haven't been super draft-oriented in it. They've gone out and they've gotten RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley and now Brandon Ingram, guys who have already played years in the league and are kind of established as, you know, solid players with bigger contracts. So it's not very homegrown. It's not a homegrown rebuild, but Masai Ujiri has proven to be a mastermind before. But yeah, this one was interesting. I did not think Brandon Ingram would end up in Toronto, and they were able to not give up much as they gave up Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, and a second-round pick as well. But Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk are likely going to be buyout candidates, so they will not stick in New Orleans. So they basically just got a first-round pick for Brandon Ingram. And what it does for the Pelicans is kind of open up this space for Trey Murphy, who has been amazing lately, to really step into that, some nights, primary scorer role. And the Pelicans are such a weird team because they have a lot of good players, but they're 12-40, and they've had so many injuries too throughout the year. But I watched this team last night, and I watched a couple of their games. There's no way in a million years this team, even with all the injuries they've had, should be 12-40. It may work. It may work to their benefit, being able to draft very highly in the lottery, but it's going to be interesting to see how many of these guys they can keep long-term going forward. Guys like CJ McCollum and DeJounte Murray. And even rumblings have been had about Zion being traded, which is something we may not see too far in the distant future. But for the Raptors, it makes them kind of mid again, in my opinion, which is the kind of a zone that they've sat in for the last 3 or 4 years, ever since they won the title in 2019. So I don't know how I feel about that for them. You know, maybe it'll put them a little better than mid, but I don't see the long-term vision there. But I'm going to trust that Masai has a plan. I'm going to trust in that. But for the Pelicans, this is a year you can just chalk up. Trey Murphy has looked good, which has been, you know, I guess the lone bright spot. CJ's had some good games. It'll be interesting to see if he sticks there long term. But the Pelicans, they're going to have to kind of reevaluate where they stand in the Western Conference, I think, even when they're at their best. Because I don't think that they're able to contend with this current team. I don't think they'll be able to. Those were like the really big deals. There were some smaller deals made. A very underrated deal that was made right before the trade deadline. DeAndre Hunter being traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Caris LeVert and some other things, but that was the basis of the trade, was DeAndre Hunter for Caris LeVert. I really like that trade for the Cavs, who are far and away right now the best team in the Eastern Conference. Giving them a bigger wing, giving them a guy that they can start at their 3 position if they like, guy that they could bring off the bench if they want, who's been having a really good season for the Atlanta Hawks. And I think that DeAndre Hunter is going to prove to be a very important player for them come playoff time, because it looks like the Cavs, unless they just start losing out of nowhere, are going to wrap up the 1 seed, which is crazy. I had them as my 8 seed coming into the year. The Cavs have far and away overachieved, and they got 3 All-Stars for it, all deserving guys. Shout out to Donovan, Darius, and Evan Mobley. But yeah, getting DeAndre Hunter was a really good deal for them, and I think it's going to prove a good trade come playoff time. On the Hawks side, the Hawks ended up selling not only just DeAndre Hunter, but they traded Bogdan Bogdanovic to the LA Clippers for Terrence Mann, who is just untouchable a few years ago. So for him to be traded for Bogdan Bogdanovic is kind of a fall from grace for him in the Clippers organization. But yeah, it looks like the Hawks are trending towards the direction of sellers, at least this year. And I know they have a lot of, you know, young players at the wing position already. But DeAndre Hunter was having a really good year. And I guess, you know, sell high. I guess, you know, you can rationalize it to that. But I think the Hawks are going to have to be one of those teams like the Pelicans who evaluates, you know, where they are. And if they really want to continue to be mid or even worse than mid this year, they're a couple games below 500, even with Trae Young playing really good basketball. So I think that they're going to have some decisions to make. But I like those trades for both the Cavs and the Clippers going forward. Also had Kyle Kuzma being traded to the Milwaukee Bucks for Chris Middleton, among some other things as well. This was another deal where, kind of to the Jimmy Butler deal, but to a lesser degree, it's like, okay, cool. What does this really do for you, though? And the Bucks front office and I guess their staff, they believe that Kyle Kuzma is capable of producing on a much higher level than he was in Washington. They have done extensive research, apparently, about it. So if that's what they believe, then that's their prerogative. But I don't see how a move like that can really, you know, take the Bucks over the top in the Eastern Conference. But I do think Kyle Kuzma can come in and be solid. And I like their return for the Washington Wizards, who I think had a really good trade deadline for the way they were able to kind of take on some bigger contracts and get some picks alongside of that. So they were able to do some good things this deadline. But Kyle Kuzma will probably come in and be better than Chris Middleton has been this year. I just don't know how much better, and I don't know how much that move really does for the Bucks long term. I just don't know. But we'll see. We will see. Had a couple of other trades. The Grizzlies trade Marcus Smart to the Washington Wizards. Jake LaRavia to the Sacramento Kings to kind of get off some money, which was interesting because we knew the Grizzlies could be buyers on a guy like Cam Johnson, and to see them kind of sell to, you know, make room, cap space room, and to kind of shore up their roster. I don't think it's a bad move, but it's an interesting move, which I know some fans have, you know, given some backlash to, but did not expect to see a move like that made by the Grizzlies on trade deadline day. So we'll see how that pays dividends for them going forward. But yeah, other than that, just some smaller trades. Yeah, I'm going down the trades right now. Nothing really super of note. Interesting deadline. So I touched earlier on the Mark Williams trade being rescinded yesterday. So I'm kind of glad I waited to make this video, because after that trade happened, I was like, the Lakers are the winners. The Lakers are the winners of the deadline. And they still might be the winners of the deadline just for being able to pull off the Luka trade. But to have the Mark Williams trade follow that was another big win for the Lakers, where he was a big that I did not expect to be, you know, on the market this trade deadline cycle. And they were able to get him for just Dalton Connect and their 2031 first-round pick, which I think is, you know, pretty good value, even though Dalton Connect has been pretty solid for the Lakers. But we see that rescinded yesterday after he failed his physical, apparently. And so the players are going to have to go back to their respective teams, which kind of creates an awkward situation, you might think. But it also puts the Lakers kind of in a bind where the trade deadline is passed now, and they don't have their starting big. They don't have their guy. So they're going to have to, you know, use the buyout market to try to do something. But I don't know like how much is even possible for them to do at this point. I don't even know who the best buyout market center would be right now. So that kind of sucks for the Lakers, but interesting to see that happen a couple days after that trade went through. I kind of thought that trade had already been finalized, but yeah, this trade deadline cycle was crazy. It was insane. Brought some very unforeseen things. And I'm so excited to watch this next little stretch of NBA basketball, even more so than usual. My basketball watching in general has kind of ticked up over the past month or two. I've been locked in a big way, but with these trades, oh yeah, I'm in it now. I'm in it for real. We've got All-Star next week. I know a lot of people have their qualms about All-Star. I know a lot of people have their qualms about All-Star Saturday night too. I'm excited. I'm excited for this year's All-Star. I'm always excited for All-Star though, just to see all the guys play together, to see the Rising Stars game. I think that's an underrated aspect of All-Star. And Saturday night is always fun, regardless of who's participating. I think there's some good participants in the slam dunk competition. I really like Stephon Castle and Andre Jackson, and even Modest Buzelis, I think, is capable of giving us some good things as well. And of course, two-time returning champ Mac McClung, which was a guy who was actually kind of hoping not to see this year, just to kind of shake things up a little bit. But I don't mind. But anyways, just kind of looking at some standings where we sit right now. The Thunder and the Cavs still far and away the best teams in their respective conferences. The Thunder at 42-9, the Cavs at 42-10. The Thunder just won a big road game last night in Memphis without Chet Holmgren, who came back the other night against Toronto. So the Thunder are getting healthier. The Grizzlies are fully healthy now. They're second in the West. The Nuggets have been playing some really good basketball. They've won 6 in a row. The Lakers have won 5 in a row. They sit at 4th right now. They've passed the Rockets, who have lost 6 in a row. Before today, they played the Raptors. So the standings are kind of being shaken up. And you look down to this play-in little bracket in the West. Past the Dallas Mavericks, who currently sit at the 8th seed, you have the Kings, the Suns, the Warriors, the Spurs, and the Blazers now. as the teams who are fighting for those last two spots. And as a Blazer fan, as I touched on earlier, the Blazers have been one of the hottest teams in the NBA lately, winning 10 of their last 12 now after losing last night in Minnesota, unfortunately. Being the league's #1 defense over that span. So I've been having a lot of fun. I've been having a lot of fun. The Blazers were also one of 4 teams that didn't make a trade at the deadline. The other teams were the Nuggets, the Magic, and the Timberwolves. And the Magic especially were a team that I was like, they need a scorer because their offense has been looking abysmal lately. But I guess they don't see this year as the year to really go all the way in. I guess they're kind of waiting for the offseason, which I guess is all right. They've got time, but they got off to a good start this year before the guys went out with their abdominal and oblique injuries. But yeah, that play-in group in the West is going to be interesting to see which of those 2 teams gets in, especially with the Spurs getting Fox, with the Warriors getting Jimmy Butler, with the Suns not doing anything of note other than getting Nick Richards and getting off of Yusuf Nurkic, and then the Kings getting Zach LaVine. So we'll see who kind of comes forth out of that group in the Western Conference. But out east, the Celtics are second, the Knicks are in third. Pacers have been playing some pretty good basketball lately. They're up to 4th. And the Bucks, the Pistons are in 6th right now. That's kind of exciting with the Heat and the Magic, the Hawks and the Bulls rounding out that top 10. I've been doing this a couple times since I've been on here the past couple times, so I'm going to give some players that I've liked recently. The most fun players to watch in the league for me right now are Amen Thompson and Toumani Camara. Super hyper aggressive defensive guys who just they bring it every single night, and they take the challenge. Amen Thompson, especially in the month of January, I think he averaged like 19 points, 11 rebounds, and like 5 assists a game. And his counting stats are not even like the most important part of his game. It's about his defense. It's about his effort impact. It's out of this world, and it's hard to find a comparison for him. For him to be in his 2nd year, he looks like he is a star in the making. I know the Rockets are on this skid right now, but he has been unreal for the Rockets. I think he's been their best player over the last month or 2. And Toumani Camara, as a Blazer fan, I think Toumani Camara is the most important player on the Blazers roster. I think both of these guys should be all defensive players this year. Toumani Camara held Tyrese Halliburton the other night scoreless, scoring 0 points, and he's done that a couple times this year where he has locked up guys like Trae Young and Steph Curry. And the way he is able to guard guards after being a center in college is kind of unreal. And I know Phoenix Suns fans, after the Blazers beat them twice in a row the other night, are in shambles after technically trading Toumani Camara and DeAndre Ayton for Yusuf Nurkic, who is now a Charlotte Hornet. So I've had a lot of fun watching those 2. The Oklahoma City Thunder in general are still high up there for me. I watch every Oklahoma City Thunder game I can. They're super fun, especially with Chet back now. They're here. They're here. They're all the way here. Isaiah Hartenstein has still been really good for them. So yeah, Trey Murphy. I mentioned Trey Murphy a little bit earlier. He's scoring like 30 points per game over the past 3 weeks. Pretty insane. A guy whose emergence I had kind of foreshadowed before. I've had him on MIP talks, I believe, and he's really kind of come into his own this year on a struggling New Orleans Pelicans team, but he has been the bright spot on that team. So shout out to Trey Murphy III. I guess that's all I want to talk about today. Yeah, just really excited to watch basketball right now. Really excited to watch, especially the next couple of weeks with these new players getting acclimated to their teams. And it's going to be interesting to see how much they can really impact winning, especially guys like Jimmy Butler and Luka in the short term. I'm really excited to see it. Thank you all for watching once again. I know this was kind of everywhere. I still, missed not having Jacob on here to kind of bounce some things off of. So, but hopefully we can get Jacob back on here before long, because I know he's got a lot of thoughts about his Sixers right now, who are kind of in the thick of some pretty deep trenches right now. Um, but we'll see how things shape out. I hope to be back on here pretty soon. I imagine we'll have some things to discuss, but definitely wanted to come on here. Better late than never to discuss the trade deadline in totality. So what do y'all think? What do y'all think about this year's deadline? Who do y'all think has really emerged as contenders? Who are winners? Who are losers of the deadline? And yeah, y'all let me know who y'all think is really kind of stepped forward on that front. So I appreciate y'all listening. I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll catch y'all next time.